Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. It is 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the Johnston City Council meeting number 22-14 to order. Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cope,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Reddy,
Here.
Burkhart.
Here.
Want to welcome everyone that is in the audience this evening. There doesn't appear to be anybody here physically present. However, if there is anyone online, and it doesn't appear that there's anybody online, but should anybody join us, if you arrive and you're here for an item that is on the agenda, we would ask for you to wait for that item to come up. If you are here for an item that is not on the agenda, there will be an opportunity under public communications to address the council. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Who among the staff has never led us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Raise your hands. Teresa, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Jim, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we're going to remove item 7A from the agenda this evening.
Okay. Council, is there any other changes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Reddy,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Next item on the agenda is public communications. We do not have any scheduled public communications this evening. We still do not have anyone present in the council chambers here with us, and it doesn't appear that we have anybody online either. So we'll move on to public hearings. We have no scheduled public hearings this evening. So we'll move to item 5, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the non-consent agenda, item 7B. Consider adoption of the sidewalk program. Yeah.
Since there's nobody here, do you mind if I just sit here and speak this evening? Okay.
That works.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is a follow-up to the conversation we had at the last city council meeting. We were asking for the council to consider adoption of the sidewalk program. And so it was requested of staff to, before we took action on that, to provide a copy of the most recent red line draft of the agreement. And so the agreement we were working off of, or the most recent agreement, was the May 27, 22 agreement. And that's the one that was taken most recently to the Public Works Committee for review. The previous version was January 19 of 2020. So as the version that the last red line was done was almost 2 years ago, and then it led to the most recent one. So we provided that information to the council tonight. The other two things that were requested was a map of the area that we've got 8 areas, the city broken down into 8 different areas of how we're going to proceed with the sidewalk program. And then also we provided an anticipated program schedule that was requested as well. So that's the updated information for the council this evening, and staff would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, have any questions for Jim?
I missed the public informational meeting that you had. Did you not have one in for the first phase?
We did related to the Green Meadows.
Right. So what
right.
I guess my only question is, was it well attended?
Yes, we had two public meetings. It was well attended. And the majority of the overwhelming comment was, when is the sidewalk program coming? Everybody was happy that we were doing the ramps, but did ask, and we got asked several times about when were we going to tackle the actual issues with the sidewalk where the trees are heaving them up. So that's why we've provided this schedule and the sidewalk program. So it was well attended.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So Jim, just in kind of reviewing the red line, it looks like most of the changes are very sort of almost wordsmithing and now no significant substantive changes. Is that correct? Or would you identify any substantive changes to the policy compared to the previous policy that was in place?
In this version, there is really more, like you had mentioned, it's more cleaning it up with some wording and that kind of thing. I'll have to tell you, there's probably 10 red lines of this, over the years. And so I just went back to the most recent one, which was 2 years ago, because I know the committee, Public Works Committee has worked on this for quite a few years. So, but this was the most recent one. And again, there's been a lot of conversations between the time where this was considered. So, and actually, we don't have a sidewalk program now. So this is the beginning of it. It's not like we're redoing something that we've already have in place. This is actually a new program that, again, we've been talking about this for a number of years.
But didn't we adopt in several years ago, something, a document similar to this? I thought we did back in 17 or 16 or something.
No, we've never formally adopted a sidewalk program. We've written it and had several versions of it, but it's never been formally
Okay,
adopted.
okay.
The one thing that may, just to clarify, we have been putting money in the budget for the sidewalk program over a number of years, probably back to the time frame you're thinking about, Councilmember Cope. But we're, as stated in the staff report for this evening's meeting, we had a number of other priorities that cropped up. They were all pedestrian related, but didn't really implement the sidewalk program that we have before us this evening. So that relates, for example, to the Merle Hay Road Trail from 62nd to North Glen, the pedestrian ramps at the 3 intersections along Merle Hay Road. The sidewalk on the south side is 62nd from Lawson to Pinewood Glen. And so those were a number, just examples of some projects that we've done. And this year doing the ramp project in Green Meadows, that's what we've been using the sidewalk funds for. Now we're ready to implement the plan where we're going to review and, get the sidewalks in our neighborhoods up to code.
Any other questions or comments, council? If not, do we have a motion to adopt the sidewalk program?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7C, consider first reading of ordinance number 1078, amending the municipal code of the city of Johnston, adopted by ordinance number 1010, passed March 4, 2019, by amending Chapter 100, regulation of industrial wastewater, commercial wastewater, and hauled waste. Matt.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Johnston is a member of the Des Moines Metropolitan Wastewater Reclamation Authority. The WRA administers the regulation for industrial wastewater, commercial wastewater, and hauled waste for the city and many metro communities. Recently, the WRA reviewed their regulations and has requested that member communities adopt the proposed amendments to that industrial commercial wastewater as well as the hauled waste regulations. It's found in Chapter 100 of Johnston's Code of Ordinances. What some of those changes are, they've updated surcharges and fees for hauled waste as well as some of the sewer surcharges for industry. They've also added 2 definitions, a waste generator and non-significant categorical industrial user. It's a mouthful there. As well as added Grimes to the list of participating WRA communities. And then they've added some more financial protections for industrial and hauled waste discharges. This allows the WRA authority to require payment bonds before receiving any waste generator that would send a wastewater truck to the WRF. And then real quickly, we'll go through and review the rate study that the WRA did. That's up here on the screen. If you back up just that's next screen. So what we've got here are the new rates, and then the red numbers would be those affected. Now, if you look at the local industries and the regional industries, Johnston does not actually have any of those industries, so we wouldn't be receiving or be affected by those new rates. Where we're going to be seeing those rate increases would be under the fog disposal fees over beneath our local restaurants. Next slide. Next slide. We won't go through every single page here. So as you can see, these are the industries that are listed by community here. There's 60 of them here in the metro. And then there are 16 non-member communities that actually haul their waste into the WRA. You can see there's a map of how far waste is actually hauled into the Des Moines facility. You can see it's clear down in central Missouri as well as southeast Nebraska and southern Minnesota. Next slide. So right here, you'll see, and this is for those discharges, those hauled waste rates for industry that Johnston really doesn't have any of these. So we'll just briefly go over these. You can see the current rates, the new rates that they're looking to increase to, and those changes that are over there in green or red. There's an actual deduction for the total nitrogen level there on the third one down. They got their math wrong on the oils and grease. That should be 0.05. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the way that they would like to implement this is in a stepped approach. If this moves forward, it would be go into effect September 1st, 2022 through June 30 of 2023, and then get on the fiscal year track. And those would be the increases for July 1, 2023, July 1, 2024, to really reach that rate that they're looking for. And then after that, in 2025, it would increase each year by 2%. And you can see down in 2023 in the lower left-hand corner what that rate would be. So it slows down significantly once they kind of catch up. They've never increased their fees from when the WRA started in these categories. So if there's any questions, this is just for the industrial hauled waste as well as what's discharged through industry that we really don't have any of. We'll move into the next slide, which is really the fog disposal or the fats, oils, and grease that restaurants have or you can see the current rate at the top there is at almost 2 cents. And then their recommended rate is 3.5 cents. Now, when they did their model estimate, you can see it slides all the way down to almost a little over a 7.5 cent increase, but they were able to reduce that and keep it at that recommended rate. So next slide kind of gives a little bit of a summary on how those fees would actually affect a business. So currently that old rate at nearly 2 cents a gallon there for a minimum size of 1,000 gallon interceptor, you would essentially pay $19 to have that, to discharge that at the WRF. This doesn't include any of the costs for this or the services that the hauler would charge you, which they would be getting charged today. So that new rate here in a couple of years would be up to that. I guess this one actually goes into effect. This one's not a stepped rate. This would actually go into effect September 1. So you would be up to that nearly 3.5 cents a gallon.
And that's a yearly estimate? That's what it's trying to say there?
Yeah, the $420 would be if they had it cleaned monthly. Yep, so that'd be a year.
So it is monthly?
The $35 is a monthly fee.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
And Matt, did the WRA have public meetings where they allowed an opportunity for those that would be impacted by these fee increases to attend and comment? Do you know?
I know that the amendments were reviewed by the tech committee as well as the WRA board. I'm not aware if they had public meetings. I know that they're trying to keep the rate structured for those that actually are discharging or using this service so that residents aren't subsidizing those rates. So they're really trying
focusing on the
focused on the user.
users.
I will say the WRA is a government body and so they follow the same rules and regulations as far as open meetings. And so these rates have been shared with the public that provides service there. And actually all the communities in the metro that are part of the WRA are being asked to do the exact same thing we are right now. So it'll be all, I think, 17 communities will be doing the similar action than we are. So it's
There will be
it's
an
out there.
opportunity if they're.
There's a
if
lot of
they-
opportunity,
yeah,
right?
Those impacted, if they haven't already taken advantage of the opportunity, will still have an opportunity to
Correct.
make comment.
That's all I've got for ordinance 1078.
Matt, I have a question to ask you. This is new to me. I don't know much about what this is here. So you say the impacted by new rates and you say local restaurants only? Or is that,
Well, it would be any food establishment that has fats, oils, or grease. They have to have a interceptor to catch those so they don't get into the sanitary sewer and create backups or blockages that then affect our system. So it intercepts that grease coming from these food establishments.
okay. And in one of these things in page 3, I think, it says something about septic tanks. Septic tanks are related to the industry only.
Yeah, so septic tanks, every once in a while, you have to have those cleaned out, and those would be collected in a septic truck. They would clean that system out, and they would take it down to the WRA and dispose of that waste there.
Okay, so this is only for the industry, nothing to do with the local residents or anything.
Just those that may have a septic tank here in town, yes.
Matt, how many do you estimate are on septic service still in Johnston proper?
Have that number off the top of my head, but I will.
Okay.
But it's generally, so you're talking the neighborhoods like east of Merle Hay, north of 62nd. You've got a few of the streets, 93rd, 95th, and 98th out on 70th. You've got the Roughwood neighborhood out on 54th and 86th. Those are a few that I can think of off the top of my head.
Matt, there's a comment on slide 14 that talks about eliminating the fog inspection fees. Do businesses have to be inspected yearly? Tell me how often those inspection fees currently would apply that are now being waived.
Yeah, I don't know exactly because we don't do those inspections. That's done through the WRA. I'll get that information and circulate it to you.
Okay.
But they are,
We have a board meeting tomorrow. I'll ask the question.
Yeah, I think those two slides there, the slide that Councilperson Burkhart referred to, the grease interceptor disposal rate, why offer discounted disposal rates at all? That's kind of confusing because it doesn't indicate what that is other than eliminating the fog inspection fee. So I do think it would be helpful to maybe get a little clarification on what this grease interceptor disposal rate, what they're doing, and sort of the thought process behind that. Or there has been, I have heard feedback from restaurants and those types of businesses that the WRA has a pretty intense requirements as it relates to grease interceptors. And so it's not just a restaurant that has, your true kind of greasy, basically they require a grease interceptor, even if you're offering anything like a popcorn machine or any of that type of stuff. For instance, the softball facility, John can tell, they had to install they had to sort of set aside money for putting a grease interceptor, and basically we were going to offer Snickers bars and those types of things in a pretty limited way. I think I'm pretty accurately stating that, John, but there's a lot, the regulation requirement of these grease interceptors has been overly broad, and so there's been some pushback towards the WRA about that. So this maybe is an attempt by to try to deal with that. I don't know, it's hard to tell from the information we have here, but it'd be helpful, especially since this is an ordinance, will have to be a second and third consideration to maybe get a little bit more understanding of what they're talking about on that slide, so.
I will do that and bring it back to the next meeting. I know from the talks that I've had is they're really just trying to catch up to with the increased cost and attach those to those rate users. So
I will note that we also had to do a grease interceptor at the concession stand out.
Right. Right, and I think that's where, you know, and so the requirement seems maybe a little excessive, but maybe there's a rationale for that that needs to be great, you know, detailed in a greater reason, so.
yeah, we'll gather some more information and bring it back at the next meeting.
Matt or Jim, just for clarification's sake, Jim had referenced that all the member communities are currently undergoing or being asked to approve these wording changes and rate increases. What happens if a member community doesn't? Are they just no longer a member of the WRA?
I don't know the legal answer to that question, but we can certainly find out.
Okay.
Gotta be that strict.
Are there any other questions for Matt or for Jim? Comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve first reading of ordinance number 1078?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7D, consider first reading of ordinance number 1079, amending the schedule of administrative penalties for violations of the industrial pretreatment ordinance, regulating hauled waste and regulating fat, oil, and grease discharge by food service establishments in Chapter 100 of the Municipal Code of the City of Johnston, Iowa. Matt.
So during the recently reviewed wastewater regulations and that rate study that we just covered, ordinance 1079 would establish and would amend and establish that, would amend the schedule of administrative penalties for those violations. Cindy has those pulled up on the screen now. And those relate to not only to the regulation of that hauled waste into the WRF facility, as well as the fog, fats, oils, and grease that's discharged by those food service establishments as well. This is another one that has been proposed by the WRA or reviewed by the WRA Tech Committee and the board, and has been asked to approve by the member committees. We did this one separate just because it's that rate schedule for those to look at.
Matt, I want to offer up a clerical correction if possible, just to the word hauled on page 2, right above the violation penalty table, where it says industrial wastewater, commercial wastewater, and should be hauled, yep, waste. But while I have your attention on that table, what, I guess until we get more information about inspections, when we're now talking about a restaurant that perhaps is now going to face a $420 on average annual fee, one could theoretically say, depending on how often inspections are, they may come out ahead to pay violations. So I guess I need to know how that's enforced, how often it's enforced, especially when the penalty should be paid within 30 days. You could theoretically space some stuff out and come out ahead.
I can say with the WRA, there is an appeal process that a business can go through if they don't agree with the inspection and the requirements of the WRA. I used to sit on the appeal committee for a number of years, and in the probably 4 or 5 years I was involved in that, I think we had 1 or 2 appeals across the metro. I think that from the one of the previous graphs, it shows there's 1,600 food service establishments. So it doesn't happen very often, but I just want to let you know there is an appeal process. And I don't know how that, is impacted by the penalty, but there certainly is appeal if the business feels like there's a financial issue, if it's a small business and the requirements can be a financial burden, or if there are restraints. For example, if a business locates in a strip mall that was existing that doesn't have the grease interceptors and things like that in place, that they can appeal to, do something else to deal with their fats, oil, and grease. So I know the WRA does work with the businesses, and particularly, how they would address violations, and there is a process they can go through to address that. But we'll get more information on, how often and, what how this may impact businesses. But
So Matt, this indicates that we're amending a schedule of penalties so that there's an existing schedule in our code.
There is not, it's not actually listed in our code.
But these would be new. We're establishing a new, okay.
Yeah, I looked through the code before the meeting and could not find this table in our code. I believe it just referred them to the WRA. They had that list. So this really
Okay, I just.
ends theirs and establishes it in ours.
Okay. Do we know what the previous fine schedule or penalty schedule was? Okay, that so it put some frame of this is going from 50 to 100 or 75 to 100, that would be helpful.
Any other questions for Matt or for Jim?
I don't have another comment, but or excuse me, another question, but I do just generally have a comment on this, that I'm glad that we get multiple readings on this. I also really appreciate the fact that you're willing to do the work of trying to get us more answers. It seems like, based on a line of questioning, that this is not something that many folks are familiar with, so I appreciate that. The one thing I would also direct back is, at least to the meeting tomorrow, I guess, if that's where you're headed, some explanation as to why there perhaps is not the fog phased in, though, and I know this is the previous matter on the agenda, whereas some of those other rates are. When you start thinking about small businesses and you start thinking about restaurants and things like that, and I'm talking primarily about the impact to folks in Johnston itself, I mean, that's a 85% increase in that fee in 1 year, and in fact, in less than a month from now, on top of lots of inflationary pressures that they've already had. So I'm just very sensitive of that overall. And so I would like some explanation as why they decided not to phase that in like they were proposing some of the others. So thank
get
you.
that information.
Any other questions or comments?
I would say that, and I was just going back, that they indicate that, well, I agree, it would be nice if they phased it in. The fact that they are, instead of, well, their model recommended a potential rate of 7.65 cents, their decision to keep it at 0.035 cents, I think, is a good decision and should be saluted.
Any other questions, comments?
Mayor, I'm very sorry. Will the fog rate continue to increase at the 2% as those other rates are as well for the industrial?
That wasn't indicated that it was going to raise, but I'll take a look at that and provide that information to you as well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve first reading of ordinance number 1079?
I move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope,
Yes.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7E, consider approval of claims in the amount of $2,566,804.06. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to city administrator staff comments. We have 3 listed items this evening. The first one being review additional information on the solid waste and recycling fees.
Okay.
Jim?
I'll go ahead and take that one. And so I sent to the council late this afternoon, and first of all, I want to apologize for my delay in getting this information to you. But I felt that taking a look at where we currently are on board and
Jim?
commission.
I think we're doing,
Sorry,
the first one is a review of the additional information on the solid waste and recycling fees. Is that an error?
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I was moving on to the other thing. So I wanted to provide some detail as far as the history of our monthly rates. I think that was asked at the last meeting when we took a look at the rates. And so what I did was take a look at the where we are as far as I went back to 2016 or FY16 to show the monthly rates that we've paid for solid waste, and that's the 96-gallon container, which about 95% of our citizens utilize that container, and then what the cycling rates are. So as you take a look at that, you can see our rates have been fairly low and fairly consistent, I guess, over time. You can see it goes up and down because the rates really are based on the fuel costs, the inflation, the CPI, and whether the landfill rates change. And so you can see it has gone up and down. For example, in the garbage rate in FY16 was $8.13 per month for our citizens, and it went down to $8.09. And I think that was related to the fact that there was a very low CPI, as well as fuel rates they didn't track and go as high as they had. So you can see how this is adjusted over the years. You can see from FY22 to FY23, there's a significant increase. And we talked about this last December, and we had Metro Waste Authority come out and talk to the city council and give us the information on the competitive bid that they did. And this really reflects where we are today as far as with fuel cost increases and staffing costs and those kinds of things that are related to solid waste and recycling. Also, you can see how the recycling rate went up significantly. So I provided to the council in the documents, the information that Metro Waste Authority gave us last December when they came to talk to us. I also went back and showed, I did have some information. We don't get it every year, but I did have some information on what the monthly rates for several communities has been from FY16, and it looks like we get that information about every other year. I did ask with the increase that they proposed, if we can get an updated one of what the rates are going to be for the other metro communities. I haven't received that yet, and I'll share that information when I do get that. But you can see how Johnston's rate has been impacted since FY16 to FY23, and I've used comparative rates for Altoona, Clive, Grimes, Norwalk, and Urbandale. The one difference in Urbandale provides their own solid waste. They don't contract with a company like the rest of the cities do. So you can see our rate has been tracked fairly low compared to other communities. But with this competitive bid that they did last fall, I believe most of our rates are going to be very similar going forward, but I don't have that information from the other communities at this point. So again, just wanted to go back and give the council some historic perspective of what's happened with the garbage and recycling rates.
Council, have any questions for Jim?
Yeah, I think the other thing I would add, Jim, is that gas prices have gone up significantly since, so you indicate, I think in the staff report, that these were bids that were from the fall of 2021. And that was really kind of before we saw the major increase in gas prices. So it's, I mean, I think the problem is this increase is likely, there may be another one coming in the future. And then you're looking at pretty significant higher rates than we were before. So I know certainly on the Metro, I serve on the Metro East Board, and I will pass that along to them and let them know that they're going to need to take every steps possible, because we can't just continue to pass along those rates. That's just not acceptable. So.
Any other questions, comments? If not, then Jim, now we'll talk about the boards and commissions.
On a roll, now to go back and figure out where I was. Again, after our last city council meeting, when we talked about the appointments to boards and commissions, the question was asked where we currently are, and I thought what would be helpful to the council to get a document that basically shows all of our boards and commissions, that provides information on when the current members were appointed, and also when their terms expire. So it gives you a good snapshot of how long people have served and then how much longer they have with their current term. I do want to apologize, number one, for this getting to you so late. There is also some inconsistencies as far as, some of them say they're appointed in 2020 and others say they're serving their first 6-year term. The reason why there's differences in that is that that's just the way it was reported to me. I compiled the information from department heads, and I appreciate their efforts to get this to me, but it gives us a good, again, snapshot of where we are currently with all of our boards and commissions. You can see there's some differences, and for example, differences in the number of members that serve on boards. For example, the Board of Adjustment is 5 members, the library board are 7 members, the library board's 5 members. Board of Adjustment is 5-year terms, library board 6-year terms. There's some boards that are 3-year terms. I mean, there's quite a difference there. All the information as far as number of members as well as terms, that is all within our city code of when those terms are, but I think some of them are also prescribed by state code. I didn't go back and look at that information, but I think that's why you get some varying numbers of how long the terms are and how many members are on the different boards and commissions. So hopefully this is helpful information for the council to have, and helps take a look at how long people have been serving and when their terms are up, and so by this information you can see if they've served more than one term or are in the middle of their first term. But it is quite a few differences in terms and number of members for each of these boards and commissions. So with that, I'll answer any questions the council may have, and I don't know what other direction the council wants to go regarding this issue, but at least I thought this would be good information as a baseline for everybody to have.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for putting this information together. I think this is good background for everyone to have. As I reviewed it quickly before the city council meeting tonight, it kind of confirmed what I suspected in terms of the status of the appointments and the length of time different members have served on the various boards and commissions. I think that what it shows is that we do have a fair amount of turnover. We do have many individuals that have that are in their first term and are new to their appointments. We do have some that have served for a period of years, but as I review all of the, I literally know, I think all of these individuals. The individuals that have been serving for some time, I think they're doing an outstanding job, and I stand by their appointments, continued appointment on the boards and the commissions that they serve on. So,
I think my concern that I have is not that these people are not doing a good job. I don't think anybody would question that. I do think, though, and I don't think this information really fully documents it, is to what extent people who are interested in serving on boards and commissions are not getting an opportunity because we're reappointing incumbents. And as I cited in a previous meeting, we went through a period of 4 or 5 committees of appointments where we had new people who were applying and they were not appointed. And in every case, the incumbents were reappointed. And so I do think that I think that this data doesn't really answer that question. And I also think, frankly, part of the problem that creates is it makes it difficult for us to build a more diverse lineup of folks to serve on these boards and commissions. I think if you look at a lot of the, I've gone to some of these meetings and I'm not sure at this point that these boards and commissions truly reflect the diverse citizenry that exists here in Johnston. And I think one of the reasons that when we don't appoint new folks and instead reappoint current folks, even though they've served their community very well, I think the fact that we don't appoint new people sometimes makes it hard to get a more diverse makeup of the board. So I think this information to me doesn't answer that full question. And so I still want to continue to look for ways for us to ways to encourage us to bring new folks onto these boards that may more reflect the diverse community that exists here in Johnston.
And I will say, Councilmember Cope, that when, every time that applicants are considered for these boards and commissions, I personally take into consideration that diversity, whether it's gender, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's the geographic distribution, because I want to make sure that our community is fairly represented on each of these boards and commissions. So that, from my perspective, that effort is being made. Again, I think that we would always hope that we would have more applicants for any positions that we have on boards and commissions. And just because we have an abundance of applications doesn't necessarily mean that we just replace an incumbent because we have applicants to fill those positions. I think that we should also take into consideration whether or not those individuals that are serving are doing a good job, want to continue to serve, and have the passion and commitment to fill those positions. So that's my philosophy, that's my perspective. And
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at this issue much closer as we move forward, and I have, go ahead, do you want to say something, or?
Finish your statement.
I just think that we need to, I have concerns about people serving 10, 15, 20 years on these boards without an opportunity for new people to have an opportunity. I think that's something we need to really take a serious look at. I may be the only one who thinks that, so.
I will just say that this is I've been on several of these boards or serving as the council representative on several of the boards, and each board is unique. There are, like, the library board always seems to attract a lot of people interested in that board, so they get a lot of applicants. And the other boards, for example, the park board here, it's got vacant seats. Tree board has not always been fully staffed. I don't know that, I appreciate having a more intense look at it, and I love everything you said about being able to get more people involved, but it also starts with the people getting involved. We have had some problems getting some of these seats filled, and so it almost seems like maybe we need something like a university has professor emeritus, because some of these people have, like, Virginia Solberg. I mean, she's like a rock star in the community, helping us be informed about the environment. So there are people there that give us a tremendous amount of knowledge on these boards. Nothing I'm saying here denotes anything differently than what you've said. I'm just stating that we have some very excellent people. They do serve year after year, but they are giving us quality service. I don't know what the solution is. I think it just, as the mayor looks over the applicants, I'm sure she thinks of these things as that happens.
Yeah, and I'm not being critical. I don't want that to be, I'm not in any way, this is not a personal criticism of the decisions that have been made. I just think this needs to be something that needs to be taken into consideration. And that's all I'm really seeking, so.
Any other questions or comments relating to this? If not, Jim, probably John, senior board.
I don't know where I will
Where you take
start
it.
somewhere else.
Speaking of applicants,
All right, so I think we have all of our boards and commissions filled, except the senior board going into the 2023 fiscal year. It's been a little bit of an interesting challenge. As you, I think, all know and are aware that we kind of restructured and moved forward after COVID. We've had a couple informational meetings trying to really define what the senior board will be in the future. And it's taken us a few months to try to get enough applications. I am happy to say that we got another male application today. So we are up for a board of 9. We do have 6 female and 5 male applicants now. So we do have enough. It's always good to have a few
6 and
more.
5 is 11.
What's that?
6 and 5 is 11.
Yeah, so we have
Okay,
more than enough.
Okay, we have 11 applicants. for
We have
9
11
positions.
applicants
Okay.
for 9 spots. So moving forward, it would be nice to have more applications. I would like to get this appointed in August, obviously, at this point. One thing that we are looking at doing a little different, even though we're probably going to modify it into either a 2 or a 3-year term, depending on the desires for the group. This first year appointment, upon your approval, is that we would prefer to go with a 1-year term for this first year. Gives us a chance to review who these members are, what direction it needs to go, but it also gives those members that are applying just 1-year commitment. A lot of these somewhat had to be talked into serving, knowing what the backgrounds of a lot of these members that, especially these last 2 men that we've requested, knowing their background, their experiences, they'll bring a lot to it, but they didn't want to commit to more than 1 year this first year. So
The other, as I understand it, John, the other challenge that we have is that the applicants that we have, the pool of applicants that we have are kind of concentrated in
Correct.
1 or 2 areas.
Yep.
And so again, in an effort to get some geographic distribution across our community, if any of you can think of anyone that might be appropriate to serve on this board, please encourage them to get their applications in soon.
And if not this year, in the future, there's really 3 dynamics that are at hand here. Is the gender balance. Our senior board historically was not gender balanced. As far as the users of the senior center, it's probably 4 to 1, female to male. So it's really been difficult for that. As we move forward, we're really trying to look at areas of interest and balance those out so we don't have all active and no, I don't want to say sedentary, but not as active card players, arts and crafts, those people. So trying to get a balance of interests across there so we have more that we bring to the board. And then the geographical is really difficult with the senior board because they all tend to be grouped up around Crown Point already and in a lot of the housing there. So we're looking at that. I think we have a pretty good diversity there. But anything you can do for not only this year's appointments, but in the future would be beneficial. So the more people we can talk to and get moving forward. Looking at ethnicities, unfortunately with senior center right now, it's not a diverse group at all.
But I think, John, what we need to do is we need to think beyond those individuals that
Exactly.
that utilize the
Yep.
senior services. I mean, I think there's a trend that seniors, and nobody likes that term, but,
They don't.
but we're talking about people that are 55 years and older. I mean, we're talking about people who are, many people who are still living in their, their residential homes, single-family residential homes, who do live throughout the community, who have interests in, pickleball or other activities. So that's some of the, some of the kinds of applicants we need to be reaching out to and getting them involved. So it's not just those individuals that are going to the congregate meals and playing cards.
Yep. And that's where the support from you and from other
Right.
community members
Right.
is going to be vital with it, is as all the members that we've talked to know, I want to get away from the stigma that Crown Point is where senior programming happens. Senior programming is across the entire community. It's wherever it makes sense for the programming to be. And that may be at the library, it may be other places that we can have these different programs.
On our trails, in our parks.
Exactly. So as we move forward, any support you can give, that would be greatly appreciated. Like I said, we do have 11 now, and the vast majority of them are really quality people. I think of the 11, I think 7 of them were on our steering committee as we moved forward. So 7 of the 9 that were on that steering committee have moved forward and now have applied. Some of it might have been a little twisting of their arm, but they have moved forward and have suggested that they would be willing to help. So I think we do have a good core group to start with, but I think it's going to take the entire community and your support as well moving forward to make sure that we truly make that the makeup of this board is what reflects truly what Johnston is.
It might be helpful if you're talking about the geographic distribution. Is there a way to map where the
Yep, we have
11
a
people
map.
are?
I can get that
distribute
to you.
that?
Yep.
And because there was nothing attached to the staff report or anything.
Yeah.
So that might be, then we might sort of say, okay,
Sure.
here's a part of the town that is maybe missing, and who might be somebody that might be a good candidate for that.
David Kroll is very good at doing that for me.
Yeah.
Use him for a lot of different things.
Any other questions for John?
Great. Thank you.
Any other staff comments?
I've got 2 other items I just wanted to mention. First of all, Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, there is a Zoom meeting, an update on the airport project. I know we haven't heard from them for a while, but they did send out a note to the city managers that they want to just get together, talk a little bit about where they are and figure out how we go forward. So I'll report back after that meeting. I know that eventually we'll have somebody representing the council on a sort of a steering committee, but this seemed to be just sort of an update on where they are and how things are going with that. So
That's on Wednesday at 4?
4 o'clock, yes.
Don't we have another meeting?
Yes, I'm going to be at this meeting rather than the other meeting.
Okay.
And then one other item, just wanted to report last week, they had a sort of a tour of the new trestle bridge that is being constructed. Council members Cope and Burkhart attended as well as myself, and John Smits was there as too. And really the update is they have the bridge deck poured, and what they're waiting for, there's a supply chain issue. There's 37 boxes that they're waiting for to be fabricated. Actually, they're done. They're stuck in California. We couldn't tell whether they're on a ship or on where they are, but actually the bridge contractor offered to go out and pick them up in California so they could get the job done. But they haven't been able to get those boxes here. That once they get those in place, they say there's about a month left of work, month left of work to be done, and the bridge will be ready to be open to the public. So it's encouraging that they've gotten as far along as they can. It's frustrating that we're waiting for this one item. They said everything else they need is on site or readily available. It's just these boxes they've been waiting to get delivered. And there's 37 of them, so there's quite a few. So, but it's looking very good, and it's exciting to see the progress that they have made. So hopefully we'll have good news soon. I'll let you guys know when they can get started back up on the project. And Councilmember Cope, Burkhart, you have any other comments or?
The only comment I'd make very briefly is from the standpoint of, I actually appreciated not only explanation of the delay and where we are and how much time, but also what the remediation is going to be like upon completion of construction. So for instance, there are 2 crossings that were put in, one over kind of a drainage ravine, and that'll be removed, that has been used for their equipment, as well as one clearly visible even from the interstate across as Beaver Creek, and that will be removed. It was also, I thought, appreciative of the fact, and I know it's a cost-saving measure on the contractor's part, that the riprap that they've been using in that regard will stay there, however, and in essence will help kind of shore up that the banks of Beaver Creek that's there. The last comment I'd make on that is, this was a little bit of news to me since I didn't serve on the council at the time when the Trestle Bridge originally failed, that it was undersized, so to speak, at that time, because it was a repurposement of a previous, obviously, railroad trestle. This one is much more engineered for the types of water levels that Beaver Creek is currently seeing and will continue to see. So I think that's a reassurance of good stewardship of our monies as well, from the standpoint of that we're trying to future-proof this recreational access. And by golly, I know so many folks that are eager for this thing to get open. So thank you for giving me a chance to weigh in.
That's all I had. Does anybody else have anything this evening?
If not, council comments. Councilman Evans. Ready?
I'll pass.
Oh,
So we had at our last MAC meeting, we had a presentation from the WRA about a project that they are involved in that I think is actually pretty innovative, that they're doing to reduce phosphorus levels in wastewater. So it's a real effort and encouragement by the EPA to encourage phosphorus reduction to occur in drinking water, or not drinking water, but in wastewater. And Des Moines WRA had never really had a very significant phosphorus removal process. And so they studied what some other communities had done, found a project up in Madison, Wisconsin, that takes, and one of the challenges is this phosphorus can tend to build up. It's not just phosphorus, but it's these other minerals build up in all the tanks and different things. So they spend about $500,000 a year trying to remove all that. So they've come up with a new processing system that will help them. One, they won't have to spend the $500,000 in maintenance. Two, they'll be able to significantly reduce phosphorus out of the wastewater system and keep that from then flowing, continuing to be in the water supply. So that's a benefit. And third, they're going to take the phosphorus and pelletize it and make it available. They'll resell that to somebody who will then sell it as a fertilizer product. So I thought it was a really good example on the part of the WRA of being very forward-looking and trying to identify a way to improve the environment, reduce costs, and also come up with a new product. So I'm not sure if I've got the PowerPoint presentation yet, but I'll circulate that to all the folks because I thought it was a good example of a regional entity that was being very innovative. So,
Councilman Burkhart.
I said nearly all my piece, but one thing I would encourage between now and our next meeting, in part because I do anticipate it'll be back on the agenda at either our next meeting or shortly thereafter, is that Greenwood Hills plat that was removed from the agenda or asked to be withdrawn by the developer. If you've not walked that trail, I would encourage you to bike it or walk it or scooter it or whatever you do for modes of transportation and for fun, wear a helmet. But besides that, take a look. I don't really want to put words in his mouth, but I appreciated that Councilmember Cope described this morning that as a wonderful asset to our community. And I think I quoted you correctly there. It is a truly special trail. You can lose yourself even in a quarter mile of the city in being able to do that. I think it'll help you definitely put a third dimension onto a two-dimensional flat map as you start to get a sense as to what is going to have to be undertaken to plat that. I, at this point, am reserving any kind of opinions with regard to how this is going to play out, in large part because I'm thankful and grateful to the city staff who are trying to think creatively ways that we can continue to have safe and accessible trails, and at the same point, continue to foster further development. But with that being said, if you haven't been on that trail or haven't been on that trail lately, sometime in the next couple of weeks, take a look. It'll be fun. And you can even stop by my house. I'm only a couple blocks away. I yield.
Councilperson Martin.
So I've been kind of tied down at home for the last couple of weeks. And so I took the time, because I'm driving now, to drive around the city a little bit and see all the progress on construction sites. But I didn't see a lot of progress on the Ignite site. And I'm wondering if maybe in the future we could get an update on Ignite's schedule for opening, because at one time I thought I heard that they were going to open next spring, and I don't know if that's going to happen. So if we could get an update on that, and perhaps bombers too. If there's anything that you can share, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
And lastly, I just want to first of all thank Councilman Evans for presiding over the meeting in my absence at the last city council meeting. I did view it, the videotape, and I thought he did an outstanding job, as did everyone in my absence. So thank you so much for doing a great job, even while I was gone. I did spend almost 13 days in Kosovo on behalf of the city of Johnston. It was my third trip to Kosovo. I've always paid my own way and all of my expenses, and I do that because I feel so strongly about the relationship that we have with Kosovo, not only from a city level, but also from a state level, military level, and other cities in the states. So I'm passionate about our work in Kosovo and the relationship that we've developed with the people there. It was kind of a whirlwind, and what I do plan to do is put together a brief PowerPoint that I'll share with all of you at the next city council meeting during the work session, just to kind of give you a background on why we even have this relationship with Kosovo. What does it mean, and what is it that we accomplished in this visit, and what we hope to accomplish in the future. But I can tell you that we met with there were about 40 of us from across the state that participated in this. There were representatives, particularly from the city of Des Moines, the city of Norwalk, and the city of Johnston, because of their sister city relationships. We met with many dignitaries, Prime Minister being one of those. And as you know, the Prime Minister just recently visited here in Johnston. And so during that visit, he called out the city of Johnston and the fact that he was here, and I really appreciated how we welcomed him into our community. Visited many businesses. I had some side visits with the Pristina Bar Association and the Kosovo Insurance Bureau, but I'll share some of all of that later. But probably most importantly, I participated in a local government conference where representatives from cities in Kosovo who do have sister city relationships with cities in Iowa all presented and shared information and established their goals and what they hope to accomplish in the future. Because I was the only mayor there, I participated in giving introductory remarks, opening remarks to set the conference up, but then also presented specifically about our relationship with PEA Kosovo. That happened on like a Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we spent the entire day in PEA, where the mayor of PEA invited in about 40 of his staff to interact with me and General Orr and some other people representing sister states. but we exchanged goals around, how we would have relationships with the police department, the fire department, youth sports, just businesses generally. So I'll be sharing some of that information as well. It was, I think one area where we have some real opportunity beyond just business generally is in the whole tourism industry. They're doing some amazing things in Paya around, their creeks and their trails, and they've got an old monastery there, and they put in a zip line, and they've got these gorgeous mountains. So I think there's some opportunity there to help with their tourism industry. Anyway, I'll share more about all of that as soon as I put together a little PowerPoint for you, but a lot of exciting stuff going on there, and lots of opportunity to do even more. So with that, anything else for the good of the order? If not, we are adjourned.